Hi everyone, welcome to our video on paragraphing. Usually, a paragraph represents one main idea in your essay. They are roughly between 150 to 200 words, so a good tip is if they're getting longer, do have a look and see are there multiple ideas in your paragraphs, in which case split them up. Usually a paragraph contains three main things. A topic sentence, which contains two things. So a topic sentence has to tell us what's the idea of the paragraph, as in what's the topic of the paragraph, but it also has to tell us why is that relevant for the overall argument. We're going to have a look at that in a sec. The other thing that paragraphs contain is your evidence. So examples, explanation, analysis, the sources that you're using. And finally, paragraphs conclude with a sentence that wraps up what was the point of that paragraph and why is that relevant to the argument. It can also link on to the next idea, so it can tell us why the topic that you're discussing next relates to what you've discussed in this paragraph. Usually paragraphs fall into problems if there isn't enough evidence, where you might feel like your paragraph is a little bit empty, or when there's too much evidence, or when there's multiple ideas in the paragraph. So if you feel like your paragraph is a little bit empty, have a think about, do I need to add some evidence, or is this a linking section? Do I need to put it at the end of another paragraph, for instance, or is it a section introduction, in which case that's okay. But for long paragraphs, make sure that you do go back to that 150 to 200 words rule and have a think about splitting it up into sub-ideas. They can become independent paragraphs themselves. So let's have a look. Here's an example where I've highlighted the topic sentence and the concluding and linking sentence at the end of the paragraph. So in the topic sentence in blue, what you see there is the link to the argument. The argument in this essay is about climate change's effect on tick-borne encephalitis. And the topic in this paragraph is about deer populations and how tick-borne encephalitis is related to deer, how it uses deers as host for infecting people and so on. Then at the end of the paragraph, it does the same thing. So it wraps up by telling us that climate change is likely to support optimal conditions for tick-borne encephalitis, and it reminds us that the topic was about the transmission factors, so deer and rodent populations and how they are carriers for the ticks. Now, one thing that you'll notice is that they've mentioned rodents in here, and that's actually something that I would give a little bit of feedback about for this paragraph. So this is a real paragraph. I would include rodents in here, and to change this a little bit to say something like these modes of transmission are important in regards to Sweden, as deer and rodent populations can be carriers of the ticks. Something like that. So let's have a look at another paragraph. This is one where I've modified it a bit so that we can work on improving it. So when you're editing your essay, first thing is to look for your topic sentence. What's your main point of the paragraph? How does it contribute to the overall argument? So in this particular example, what we have here is a topic sentence which tells me what the topic is, first of all. So exposure to the disease from infected ticks, and the argument is about, overall for this essay, is about climate change. In this paragraph, the argument that they've pinpointed here is the human impact, so clinical disease, sequelae, and in some cases death. Now, what I'd be thinking is, can I make this argument even clearer? And for instance, when you look at the final sentence of the paragraph, you actually see that they are talking about the severity of the public health issue, so likely to be a major public health issue for Sweden in the future. Now that is part of the broader argument of the essay. So what I would do is actually move that idea up to the topic sentence, because when your reader is going through your essay, they tend to concentrate really well on your topic sentences, and in your topic sentences they are looking for what's the connection to the overall idea. So what I would do is actually move that up. So here's an example. I would actually say something like, due to climate change and increased exposure. So that touches on the topic of the paragraph, increased exposure due to climate change. And then the argument, TBE is likely to be a major public health issue for Sweden in the future. So I would do that broader argumentation at the top of the paragraph. Then you can go into details inside the paragraph and finally wrap it up with a concluding sentence that reiterates that point. So down here we have these factors demonstrate that climate change's effect on the TBE virus. So again, climate change's link to the TBE and the broader argument pose a significant risk for public health in Sweden. The other thing with your paragraphs is don't forget your references. Usually what you'd expect to see in a paragraph is something like this, where most of the sentences do have references for them, because you need to reference every time you use any other source, any other idea, or any other data. So make sure that every fact, every claim that you make that's based on an idea is referenced. Finally, top tip, do read through your paragraphs for your topic sentences. One of the things that you might find when you're editing is if you just copy and paste each topic sentence into a document and just read through those, that can help you to see whether your argument is nice and clear. And if it's not, if you can't see your argument, your connection to that answer to the question or the key message that you're developing through your essay, have a look at the other places in your paragraphs. Have a look at the ends or the middles of your paragraphs and see whether you've expressed your argument more clearly there. Okay, our next video is going to be about conclusions.